They've removed the compensation from the MLS, must have a buyer agency agreement. And I think that how we present it is huge. If we are like, and just angry and negative about it, I think we need to turn it and say, listen, this is a good thing. This will provide clarity. This is an excellent opportunity for realtors like me to prove and demonstrate our value.
Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Chicken Little, Chicken Little. The sky is falling, people. Or is it really? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another amazing episode of Referrals Podcast. You are going to love this episode. This is the episode that if you're a realtor, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because we're about to make you uncomfortable. Or if you're already uncomfortable, we can make you maybe a little bit more comfortable. If you're not a realtor, but you support realtors, this is the episode that you're going to want to share with them before August 17th. And in some cases, before August 1st. And in some cases, before July 31st, as some MLSs are actually implementing as soon as July 31st. So bottom line, today is going to be a nutshell of information for the realtor. In fact, they're going to get like 45 days of news and strategy and success tips in 45 minutes. And that's going to be awesome. So hang tough. We're going to go into it. Now, before we introduce our esteemed friend here today, I need to give a shout out to Tanya McLeod. Today's podcast was fire. She literally said today's podcast was fire. Now, this is from a couple of weeks ago, but today's podcast was fire. I was getting dressed, searching for paper to take notes. She actually took a picture and sent me a picture of all of her Post-it notes that she was listening to the podcast and getting dressed at the same time and taking notes from the episode. This is actually from the part 1 of the Answer to Everything episode, which we've had a lot of great feedback on. Love that. Great one, Michael J. Maher. Genergy, Faith, the acronym Faith, fully anticipating it to happen. Simplementation, and the acronym for System, saving you stress, time, energy, and money, were my big takeaways and favorites. What were yours? And this refers to episode 347. Also, Referral Mastery Summit is coming. You're invited. We have a few tickets, 36 tickets left. We'd love to have you. It's September 27th through the 29th in Atlanta, Georgia, a direct flight from anywhere. I don't care where you are. You can get here direct to Atlanta, fly Delta. Use the code RMS Podcast to get 50% off the general admission ticket. That's for our podcast listeners only. That's rms2024.com, rms2024.com. Go check it out. It's the best like-minded people in the world. Here's the thing. The 3 biggest opportunities in the marketplace right now are going to conferences. I believe that's number 1. Going to conferences, meeting people from other parts of the country, especially realtors, sharing strategies and ideas with people who aren't competing with you in your own market, and they become great referral sources for you, as well as idea and brainstorming partners with you. I am Michael J. Maher because of going to conferences around the nation and then taking their ideas, implementing it, and doing well in my market. So RMS 2024 does that. The second one is buyer's consultation, and the third one is hosting events in your area locally. I believe those are the 3 biggest opportunities right now. One of those is in September. You can come to RMS 2024. So very excited about that. Without further ado, speaking of being excited, I want you to meet Marjorie Adam, the driving force behind the Marjorie Adam team and a seasoned associate broker in the greater Charlottesville, Virginia area. She is not just a dedicated realtor, but a business coach and a loving mom as well. Away from the bustling real estate world, Marjorie shares her life with her husband, Philippe, a talented chef and pastry chef from Belgium. Wow. And their 2 sons, Alex and Lucas. As a family of dual citizens fluent in French, they embody multicultural experiences and global perspectives. A true animal lover, Marjorie also shares her home with 2 rescue dogs named Leica and George, who bring joy and companionship to her daily life, along with my Miles. I love that. When she's not immersed in the world of real estate, you can find her indulging in her love for reading, enjoying movie nights with her loved ones, and dedicating time to her passion project, the Real Estate Unscripted podcast, which you have to subscribe to once you get done here. So without further ado, let's welcome to Referrals Podcast, Marjorie Adam.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here today. I know of you. I have read your book. I have like one of the earlier editions, and I have practiced what you've taught. And so this is really like a lovely moment for me. So thanks for having me.
Well, that's awesome to hear. And I'm glad you're on as well. And I've got to give a shout out. It's Referrals Podcast. You were referred to us by Matt Johnson. And so big shout out to Matt Johnson for connecting us to you. And like I said, it is Referrals Podcast. So I love that you came to us through referral. And I'd love to refer your Real Estate Unscripted podcast right now. I hope people check that out. Do you have a website for that, or a place where they can find that?
They can go on, of course, Spotify, anywhere, look up Real Estate Unscripted. It's for realtors and lenders. And so we interview realtors, lenders, authors. Renee Rodriguez, you're coming on. And it's really kind of positive mindset, but things that we need to be doing now, supporting each other and for our businesses. So it's been a great joy. I'm about 82 episodes in, and I'm loving it.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. All right. So let's jump right in. Let's help some realtors, lenders, anybody in the real estate world right now. And let's, first of all, elaborate on the upcoming changes in the real estate practices that are going to affect buyers and buyers agents. What specific shifts should we be aware of?
Yeah. So if we're thinking on the buyers, so specifically, let's put ourselves in the mindset of a buyer right now, and then we'll talk about the buyer's agent. So for the buyer, the biggest shift is going to be, so Michael, we're going to make them your realtor. And the first call, they're going to say as a realtor, well, we're going to need to do a consultation with you. We're going to have to talk about this buyer agency agreement and how it's going to work moving forward. And if you were not in an area, so in Charlottesville, Virginia, in my office, you've had to get a buyer agency agreement signed for years. So this is not new. But let's say I'm a buyer across the country who says, wait, what? A buyer agency agreement? I've never signed one of those. What is that? And furthermore, it's required. And we're going to have to talk about compensation and how I'm going to be paid. Whoa, wait a minute. Aren't you free? Right? Like, because remember, so long, work with me, it's free. So this change in how we have to work with a buyer, or how a buyer, in this case, the entire process from step one of a phone call or an email or whatever it is changes. And I think that's the biggest thing that realtors are having to overcome, is explaining why didn't I have to do, I didn't do that last time.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest shift, I think, on a buyer's end, plus what they hear in the media. So
the difference is that the buyer isn't going to be told it's free, right? So it's not a free service, though they may still not even have to pay for it. Right?
Yeah. It's true. And it's so again, but I think that so if we really kind of take a backward step and think, okay, how did we get here? There are many things, and this could take 10 podcasts. We're not going to do that. But I think as realtors, if we really say, okay, the practices that are coming in, and we're going to talk about that. What is the shift really? Because I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of fear because it's a change. Right. The big shift, like we said, was you have to have a buyer agency agreement signed. The second major shift is the compensation field in the MLS is gone. Some areas, like you said, it's the first, it's the fifth. Our area, it's the fifth. I think it's the 17th across the country.
Yeah.
So there's this massive misunderstanding then behind that. And so we now need to be clear. And as realtors, we have to be the leader in what's happening. We have to be the leader in explaining the actual things behind the lawsuit.
Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head, is that we've got to get the exclusive buyer's agreement, or BBC, EBA. We call it an EBA. And we've got to get that signed before we should show anything, which shouldn't have we been doing that all the time? Right. And then the other one is that the compensation is not being put in MLS, right? So if you really think about it, though, that's not a lot of change. I mean, compared to the drama and the panic that we've seen since March, really, it's not that big of an adjustment. Now, where I think you, like you said with the shift, is one shift I think we need to be aware of is that the consumer doesn't necessarily know any different anyway. And they're just, we talked in the pre-show a little bit of like, don't answer the question with what you think the answer should be. Find out the question behind the question. Can you go into that a little bit more? Because I really feel like that's the secret to all this is don't be the know-it-all, and then what you say totally confuses the person that asked the question in the first place, right? So we talked about the question behind, what's really the question behind the question?
So really, if you think about it, what everyone's heard is many different things. And I think misinformation, and look, we could call 5 realtors right now and say, explain the buyer agency agreement, which I do when I'm teaching, not the buyer, but the lawsuit. Explain the lawsuit to me, simply and succinctly. And everyone has their additional, I'm going to call it baggage and not trying to be
drama,
but their own drama behind it. But really the point is, the simplest way to look at this is when someone walks up to you in the supermarket and says, ooh, right? Like their first thing is, oh, are you freaking out? You're not going to get paid anymore and everything. And I think we want to launch into it's emotional for us, of course, but I think we get defensive. And instead what we need to say is, oh, Michael, it's so good to see you. And I'm so glad you asked me that question. There's so much misinformation about these lawsuits out there. What have you heard?
There you go. That's it. We could end the podcast right now. No, I mean, that's the brilliance. That's the brilliance of the Socratic questioning methodology versus the know-it-all. Everybody thinks they've got to know it all. And the best realtor in the world is the one that knows to say, I don't know when they don't know. And if you don't know, the best thing you can do is just say, what have you heard? What do you know? And what you might discover is they know even less than you don't know. Right. I mean, like you may not think you know anything, but they actually know less. So it's good just to like get into questioning. And by the way, questioning is not a defensive strategy. It's an offensive strategy, especially in this case. It's just like, hey, what have you heard? And they're like, oh, I heard that your commissions are going down. And I heard that, this, and it's like, not so far. Right. I don't think that's it. Right. But here's the thing. I mean, are you interested in buying? Is that like why you're asking and why you're so curious about this? Or were you worried about my income? Right. And if you're worried about my income, do you have some other jobs I could do for you? Right.
Or who could you refer my way? Speaking of
plenty of ways to help me with my income. So, but I think that's I hope like worth listening to for everyone who just came onto this podcast is sometimes the best thing you can do is just ask a question. Everybody like your podcast is Real Estate Unscripted. And all the realtors in the world have worried about their script. They have these script calls every morning about what exactly to say. And the fact of the matter is it should be what exactly to ask. It's don't be the one that tells and sells. Be the one that asks and is curious, right? So I love that. I have to, one little thing here. Coral was one of my best coaching clients, been coaching with me for 15, 16 years. She had an I love you latte. She came kicking and screaming to the whole event thing. She did an I love you latte. And she was like, well, people kept coming up and they kept going, well, what do you do? And I was like, all right, well, what'd you say? And I was like, well, I told them I was in and I go, all right, so the next event, I want you to do this is when they say, what do you do? I want you to say to them, I want you to go, oh, that's so nice of you to ask. But before I tell you what I do, tell me what you do. And they're going to tell you what they do. Right. And then you're never going to tell them what you did. And then they're going to be walking out of the Starbucks. That's where she held her I love you latte events. And they're going to walk. And then they're going to realize like 3 steps later that they never actually learned what you do. And that bit of mystery is going to gnaw at them. They're going to go ask someone else what you do. Well, you just bought coffee. The people that came to this event are your ambassadors. What are they going to say? They're going to go, Coral is the best real estate agent in the world. She's the nicest person. Is that better to have that conversation go on? Or is it better for you to tell them what you do? And she got it immediately. And the whole is to ask the question. instead of just telling what you do. There's a better way to do it. So anyway, I there's so much power to that, but it takes strength. It takes strength and it takes calmness, which I think we need in the industry right now. So I love this, Marjorie. So why do you think so many agents think these changes are all about the commission?
Well, because I think it's how we get paid, right? It's near and dear to us. We charge a fee. It's our commission. We feel challenged in that all the time because think about another question that we tend to rush to answer. This is, not on the buyer end, but so when you go into a listing appointment, the natural question that's coming is, what do you charge? What's your fee? Yeah. And I think there's a fear behind it. And we start, but I could do this, right? When they're just asking. So to me, one, it's all about the commission, our fear, our livelihood, and because of the structure in the agreements and the fact that we now have to very clearly show our value and our compensation, why we charge it, where it didn't need to be quite as clearly done before one.
It was the same for everyone.
Yeah. But think about the media. And again, I'm not vilifying any media. I'm just saying, if you think about when it was happening, when the lawsuits were, just, okay, we lost or whatever, it was buy 6%, no more commission. Now you can negotiate. And the irony in that to me was I'm 28 years in. So a lot of people have been realtors a long time. You could negotiate your commission 28 years ago. You can do it now. You could have put a sign in your yard. So I think the media saying that, I think we were also, frankly, and I'm not going to call it lazy, but as buyer's agents especially, you just sort of knew there was a compensation set in the MLS.
That's right.
Fear is that's now gone. It's not clear. And they're really working. DOJ wants a complete decoupling of commissions, which is, hey,
that's right.
List your house, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And then this fee structure happens over here.
Yeah.
And it's that simple.
That's the future, by the way. I think that's the future.
Of course.
I do. And right now, the listing agents are doing a good job of keeping it the same, but the eventual is going to be decoupled. It's going to be a scenario where the buyer pays the buyer's agent, the seller pays the seller pays the seller's agent, and that's how it works. That I truly believe that's the future. And the opportunity to explain your value on the buyer side is going to be there. And I honestly believe that for the better agents, the better realtors out there, you're going to get paid more. There's an opportunity to get more than whatever the standard quote unquote was before. I think there's a real opportunity. So anyway, I love that. And you're right. The reason it felt like an attack on what we were being paid. Of course that's scary. That's unknown. But so in light of these changes, what proactive steps should agents be taking now to prepare and adapt as these changes are actually taking place? If you and I had this conversation in April, May, June, it probably would have changed, right? But the nice thing about having this conversation now is listen, these changes are happening. So as much as you didn't want them to happen, they got pushed back from July 17th to August 17th. That's it. Like it got pushed back as far as it's going. You got to make these changes. So what proactive steps should agents do?
I think first is really learn, study, read about, be very clear on these lawsuits and what they mean. NAR, love them, hate them, and we're not even going to get into that, frankly. But they have a great resource. It's a FAQs. They're now like 50 pages long. But as realtors, we need to be very clear what the lawsuits really state. Who's covered, everything else, because those are questions. To me, we have to know more than the client ever. So one, they're learning, reading, studying, and then again, being able to verbalize simply and quickly what the changes really are. So when I ask you, what have you heard? I can say, oh, that's interesting, because frankly, there's two things. One, they've removed the compensation from the MLS, must have a buyer agency agreement. And then it's also in a positive way, right? Because I think that how we present it is huge. If we are like, and just angry and negative about it, I think we need to turn it and say, listen, this is a good thing. This will provide clarity. This is an excellent opportunity for realtors like me to prove and demonstrate our value. A lot of people are, again, for listing agents, we just put signs in yard, and buyers agents, what do we hear first? You didn't even find me the house. Well, so the internet wasn't invented. That's really not what I did. So I think we can explain, we can prove value. And I think the most important as we kind of continue in is we've got to have a strong buyer consultation. So the realtors that didn't have one, and it's a lot. I mean, if you really poll a lot of realtors, many, many, many never did full-on buyer consults. I would argue you're behind. But now it's the time that you have to have a strong consultation that you're really setting that buyer up for what's happening now.
Yeah, not only setting them up for what's happening, set them up to sign the EBA and set them up to truly know your value. And I have been a proponent for the buyer's consultation since I started 25 years ago, because what I discovered is, I had probably 7 or 8 transactions I did without a buyer's consultation. And the buyers were super hesitant. And the reason I didn't do a buyer's consultation, I didn't have a clue about the transaction. I didn't have a clue about any of it. I was just playing real estate, if you will. But I noticed that they were super hesitant, super slow. They didn't really know what step to do. Well, it's kind of like the basement, right? And in Kansas City, we have basements. So this example works really well. But most people have either had a basement or seen a basement on TV. And if you look at the basement and you open the door and you look down the steps and it's black, what are you going to do? I mean, you're either going to not go down the steps, right? Or you're going to try to find a light and you flip the light and nothing happens. There's no light, right? It's still black. What do you do? Well, if you really have to go down the basement, you're going to take super slow steps to get, and you're going to really be worried about what you're going to encounter on the way, right? And you're going to be super hesitant and super slow. Well, now, what if you flip the light and the lights go on? You run down the steps, you go and get whatever you wanted to get, and then you go back up. You do it fast, you do it confidently, there's no hesitation. And that's what a buyer's consultation does to a buyer. A buyer is scared no matter how many times they've bought. It's a personal residence. It's a really big decision. It has stress and tension, and you don't even know what stress and tension is within the family, let alone within the transaction. So they're in the dark. They see a dark basement. And when you go through the transaction with them, you are flipping all the lights on so that they can confidently go step by step through the process that you lead them through, not follow them through, not stand next to them. No, you're going to lead them like a leader through the process. And that's what a buyer's consultation's biggest benefit really is that it allows them to see what's next and they can go faster and proceed. And also the big thing about a buyer's consultation is you go from a foot ornament or a unnecessary accessory to the transaction to a leader in the transaction. That's what, I mean, when you do a buyer's consultation and present for someone, you're leading, you're presenting, you're in charge, and you can explain the process. And guess what? They're going to follow you through it. Or they're not. And I think it's just one of those where I could name 30 other reasons to do a buyer's consultation. I'm a huge advocate. I believe it's the biggest opportunity in the marketplace right now. I really do. What are some things that they should have at a buyer's consultation, or what are some things that you have coached with, your clients and taught in your area that you really feel like, hey, you've got to do this in your buyer's consultation?
So really, I mean, realistically, especially now, always have you needed one. But now considering, again, going backwards, that you have to have a buyer, you have to have a buyer agency agreement to show a house. I don't see a way around it. So to me, all of ours always have been. So this is easy to talk about. You're either on Zoom or you're in person, right?
That's
so
right.
Like, I can't get them in person. If you can pick up a phone, you can put them on Zoom. And if they see you, there's a connection. There's no connection to someone on the phone. We can go right into your book and talk about that, right?
Yeah.
But, so really the things we do now and always have, part of that consultation, first, I don't ever understand that you would just jump in the car and show someone a house. One, we've got to look at, are you pre-approved, right?
Yeah.
So
Safety.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you're in Texas, right? I mean, anyway, I mean, we've heard enough stories of bad buyer agent stories, so
But
safety.
If people think you're only worth the key that we hold, right? Whatever our phone being our key, well, then that's because we haven't taken the time to say, okay, first, I need to explain a buyer agency agreement. Second, I really need to make sure you've been pre-approved. I'm not going to drive you around and show you houses. Then we find out you cannot comfortably be in that price point. You're not happy with anything. So we're going to do a wants and needs analysis. I got to go through your pre-approval. We're going to talk about time frame and what's most important to you. There is a flow to a buyer agency presentation. I have a folder, right? I don't know if you're the same way. Like, so if I do a buyer consultation, everything's in here, the buyer agency agreement, why they should choose to work with us, the services we provide. And it's a set meeting plan, right? Like, I'm a checklist person. I'm sure you are too. Like, here's our buyer meeting plan. We go through it all. And so they have to look, this is a referral podcast. We've got to acknowledge the referral source at the beginning and explain how we work by referral. You do that in a consultation. We go through and discuss agency. So at our office, we don't do dual agency. We have to make sure they understand that. We talk about finding their home, how we narrow down their choices. I don't want to show them 8,000 homes with no basements if they got to have a basement, right? And so we do a live search. I think that's another thing a lot of people not do. So you got to do a live search when they say, I want, 52 bedrooms and I want it for $100,000. And you're like, right. It's not me telling you can't find it. It's the market, right? So I think there's all these things we fill out on All About You so that we know more about them, how they prefer to communicate. By the time we're done this, we're answering their questions, settling their fears. I'm also understanding, like, how likely are you to purchase? What's your time frame? In a perfect world, when would you be settled? By the time they go get in the car, they understand this is how we're working together. The agreement is signed. This is how I'm going to be compensated. We've talked about, we know that, okay, this is the price point we need to be in. Here's your comfortable payment. I'm your advisor. We always say that, right? I'm your real estate advisor. But if we're going to just jump in a car and say, Fred wants to see 123 Main Street, I am like anyone else who will open a door for them.
Right. All of that could have been a really good ad for our buyer agent mastery class as well. A great thing to have with buyer's consultation is just use mine. Because I give them my entire buyer's consultation and then I model it in session 1. I actually give it to a live person and go through the whole thing. And what's amazing is I love how much of what you just said is incorporated in exactly what we do, right? And the one that you hit on the head that a lot of people forget is the live look at, right? So I will go through the process explaining that we work by referral and emphasizing the importance of referrals to our business and that we're only going to show you 3 to 5 homes and then you should make an offer. I'd be an idiot to show you more homes than that because it meant I wasn't listening, right? And you're going to get into memory fog. Right? The more homes I show, you're going to say, I want the home that had that kitchen and that backyard. And then you go, well, those are 2 different homes, Yeah. I mean, and we've all had the house blur, right? Where it's like, you forget which things are in which house. We don't want that. And then I'll go through the process and then I'll go, well, how's that sound? And they're like, that sounds terrific. Well, you do a lot of things. And I'll explain the housewarming party, the wealth building consultation, a lot of things that we do above and beyond what most people do. And then I'll go, all right, great. So that, does it seem like we're the team that you could work with? Yeah, that sounds great. All right. So the next step is I need you to sign this exclusive buyer's agreement. And once you do this, then I can show you homes, right? And you do want to see homes. Yes, I want to see homes. All right. So let's go through the EBA. I'll explain it. They DocuSign it or they sign it right there on the table. And then it's like, I open up MLS, right? And we go right through MLS and we go with their dream search and then back it off. And with the dream home, what's so great about that, you hit it on the head, is 0 come up. When we put in all the things they want in the house, almost every single time it comes up with 0. And you're like, exactly. There's no perfect house. So let's find the almost perfect house. Where do we need to back off these to find out what's there? And I'm in MLS. Yep. So they know I'm not hiding anything. They know they're not missing out on anything. We're doing it right there live on MLS. And then we'll find 3 to 5 to show. And then we set the appointment for the weekend. But I go and preview those 3 to 5 that night. And one of the things, you triggered something in me, Marjorie. And I'm just passionate about this because it can be done so much better than the industry has done. And, another thing is before you look at the 3 to 5, you've got them up there. The very first thing you do is do the Google Earth bird's eye look to see what's going on around that property. It is amazing how often, because it is next to a landfill or a highway or a railroad, or whatever it may be, that they say, you know what, let's put that off. Or in Kansas City, a highway, we put that off and go, I'd rather have it where it's deeper in the neighborhood. Well, now you're down to 3 instead of 5 to show. And, then because location rules the most. And then you go preview the 3 on your own, and you're going to this one's the best 3, or best one out of the 3. But then you go show on Saturday and you have a strategy to that, and they buy one, and then you're going, because why? They know they're not missing out on anything. They're looking at the FSBOs are in MLS, the expireds are in MLS, the coming soons are in MLS, the builders' homes are in MLS, the developers' homes are in MLS, foreclosures are in, they're not missing anything. So, they can go confidently, ahead on buying the home that fits their profile the best. So,
but they're going to blame us, right? Like if Marjorie didn't find me the home, and it's like, no, because
Yeah.
also, I need to have all those things. All right. Well, then we got to start popping the price point up. All right. Well, $1 million, I'm making this up. You can have $1 million. Okay. Well, then let's go back down, because they want to blame us. So a fun thing, I'm sure you do this too. We do the home showing likes and dislikes. So we literally give them a form of
555 form.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we have them name the house, because that's the best, right? If they're like, that's the stinky house, they're not
Sunflower house, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the stinky house, right? Or, and you're like, they ain't buying the stinky house, right? So we can move on from that. But it's kind of fun, right? It's fun for us too.
It's fun when you're professional, Marjorie.
Yeah.
You and I are talking right now as tops of the profession, right? We're the best it gets in the profession. And I don't say that, there's a lot of best it gets. There's a lot of us that are super uber professional. When you are doing this business at its most professional, it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. And we impress the heck out of people. We knock the socks off our clients. They're super happy. Everybody's less frustrated. But you know what? The bottom 93% are the ones who are just like, they haven't made the commitment to professionalism. And guess what? They're the ones that are going to struggle with these changes the most, because they're either going to refuse to be professional, or they're going to choose not to get the coaching to be that professional. And it's just like, man, get into the 7%, because it's a great life, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard. It really isn't. It just got to practice it daily and decide that you're going to be the professional one. Decide you're going to be the best, right? All right. So, man, we fired off and went off on a tangent there, sister.
That's all right.
All right. So in your opinion, why do many agents tend to overlook the buyer side of this business, and what untapped opportunities exist in focusing more on this aspect?
Well, I think, look, listers last. We've always heard this. I absolutely believe it. Look, in this market, you have to have listings. You must, right? Like, you've got to do that. And you can have 7 listings and go on vacation and still things are happening. There's many reasons. I wish I could explain. So I've coached students for many years, and, they would say, well, I give all my buyers away. And what? Or I have buyers agents. We don't take buyers out. And here's the reality. Buyers become sellers. You build your database up with buyers because they stay. The sellers are great, but then they also leave. So that means I'm not growing my sphere.
Right.
But I really think at some point I don't show buyers, or it became like I'm only a listing agent, which again, I never really grasped. I don't know who made this decision. But I think somewhere this happened. It's a missed opportunity. Again, for me, it was always sort of simple. Like, when you start your career, you work with buyers. Almost everyone, you might get like a cousin or a sister or someone who's like, I've never done this, but good luck.
Or a first-time home buyer, right?
Right. But those are buyers, right? And then and used to be 3 to 5 years. Now, according to statistics, more like 10 to 15, but they turn over and become sellers. Plus, they refer more people to you. It's just a natural progression. And to me, I've always loved buyers. We talk about, so what are some untapped opportunities? Gosh, if you haven't perfected your buyer presentation, if you haven't really accepted that buyers are a massive part of your business, that's a massive opportunity. And I think then we got to be clear on, right? So who's buying, right? Like, so now the average first-time home buyer is now closer to 39, right? And so they're taking longer to purchase. But first-time home buyers, massive incoming, right? Constant source. And then downsizers are a massive source. So I've got to be figuring out if their house doesn't work. So, you know this, look for life changes. So for me in my area, I can say who's buying and who's coming into town and who do I need to be looking for? You can in yours. I think this sort of, we don't work with buyers. Listings are better. Look, I love a listing. I'm not going to lie. I love a buyer. And I really think the mass opportunity, frankly, again, if the seller moving to Kansas City, which I, send them to you, but if they are gone, I don't have lasting referral opportunities. The buyer stays, I have this massive opportunity to be in the influence of all their people.
Buyer's a bigger opportunity. Now, is it the most leveraged? It's not, right? Sellers are more leveraged because you do the work in the beginning and then 10,000 agents do the work in the end, essentially, right? You've got 10,000 people trying to sell your property for you. But here's the thing I think the biggest mistake on focusing on sellers is people aren't typically sellers first. They're buyers first. They go to find a home, and most people won't even think about putting their house on the market until they've found the home that they're going to move to. Very rarely, and it's only relocation, which goes back to what you said, is they move away. Well, what good is that for your sphere, right? The biggest opportunity is a buyer, because when you're at an open house, they come to it, they're interested, they want to buy. Well, what do they have? They have a house to sell. So you really got the listing by focusing on the buyer anyway. And that's and you got a local one, which is a double whammy. It's perfect for you. The other thing too is just back to this way is buyers are buying. You do a housewarming party for them, and you're meeting 40 to 60 people in your area, and your sphere grows by 40 to 60 per buyer. So, and then all the other opportunities. A buyer also is a great referral source, and so on and so forth. They're usually moving for a reason, and that reason usually lends itself to other great referrals. They're moving because their kids are getting older, or they're moving because they have more kids. They're going to a new school. So there's a lot of social interactions that are forced with that buyer who has a chance to refer you. So I do know that a lot of people are like, all right, just focus everything you do on your sellers. And I think, you know what, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities just by focusing on expireds and for sale by owners and that kind of thing. And here's the thing is maybe we shouldn't focus on buyers or sellers. Maybe we should just focus on our sphere. And then we focus on our sphere, we're going to get buyers. And we have to realize people are not sellers and people are not buyers. People are people. So how about, what if we just looked at our sphere as the focus of our energies? And what we're going to get then is we're not just going to get buyers and sellers. You're also going to get referrals. And I think that's been the secret to success that I've had over the years is I'm just going to focus on my sphere. Whatever happens within that sphere, then I'm going to take care of. I'm going to be their real estate resource and that kind of thing. And I think that, like the first rule of client appreciation parties in the referral mastery system is don't call them client appreciation parties, right? Call them friends and family parties. Name them so that everybody can attend. Why? Because everyone isn't a buyer or seller or a client, but they could be a referral source. So I think you just hit it on the head with this, Marjorie, in a lot of aspects. And, as these changes are taking place, we're so timely with this conversation. What other words of advice, or what would you tell maybe those agents that are maybe a little frightened by this, or, maybe they've taken a step toward growth, but they haven't thrown the door open yet? What would you tell them?
Again, fear. I think we all have levels of fear. And look, you have a great year and you think, oh, well, that might not ever happen again. We just have this, we don't believe that the things that were put in place and that we're doing work. But then I think a lot of us also reach a pinnacle and stop doing the basics that we know that work because we got to find the sexy change, like the shiny object. And I think, look, it's as simple as everyone that's a future client, current client, past client, we are here to solve a problem. So we call them buyers and sellers, but they both have a problem I can solve. And so keeping in relationship with my clients as well. How can I help you? What problem can I solve? Who can I connect you to? Can I help one of your kids? Can I help you get a job? Can I, let my clients know and friends know about you if you have a business? Like, how can I be a resource? And I think as time continues, we confuse marketing and spamming to them to providing value to them.
Right.
So I think if we can say, look, if you close down your house now and you're not going to move for 10 or 15 years, how do I remain valuable to you? Not just, I joke, like we send postcards, right? Like I sold 10 houses this month, and I sold 20 houses this month. And I said, if you bought a car and the person who sold you your car was like, I sold 10 houses this month, automatically I'm like, well, there's 30 days. How much do you make for me? Like that just doesn't make sense. But if he said, here, I bought this car. Here is how those little buttons that I still don't know what they do.
Yeah, right.
And I can get like, really, right? Like I make a mistake in the car and I'm like, ooh, I can't.
Yeah. I've had a car for 10 years and finally figured out one of the buttons. Yeah. You're like, oh, that's how that opens.
There's a scary little thing that you can track with your fingers. I don't touch it. I don't know what to do with it. But what if he sent me hey, here's what that is. Here's $50 off a car detailing. Here's how this works. Like provide me value. Now it's time to change your tires. For us. Like, what is it? Do they need help with insurance? Are they having struggles with this? Do you know something's happening in the area? How can I connect them to someone that can help them? And so I think if we all look right now, it's being a positive voice in an area full of noise and confusion. And again, how we react when a question's asked. What's your commission? I'm so glad you asked that, right? Like, let's be not fearful or feeling like we've got to fight for something. Let's prove why we're worth it.
Yeah. Love it. That's a drop the mic comment right there. And so there's going to be people that listen to this and they want more of Marjorie Adam. How can they find out more about you and learn more about what you're doing?
So again, they can reach out to me, Marjorie Adam team. So you can find me on Instagram, any social media, Real Estate Unscripted. I highly encourage, not because of me, but because everyone that's going to be on it, including you coming up. The guests are amazing. We're shifting kind of our coaching. We're doing some different levels of masterminding and coaching. My huge focus on people that otherwise can't afford it, right? There are a lot of people that need a lot of help that just don't have the means to spend this big money coaching. There's got to be a way to make it affordable. And so that's a huge focus I'm working on launching in the next couple months. But man, I love connecting with people and I'm very passionate about helping people commit to systems and processes. And I love having fun. So how do we make this fun? And that's a big thing for me.
I love it. I love it. Marjorie, you rocked it today. I appreciate it. This is such a timely and important conversation. I felt like this is exactly what's needed in the marketplace today, especially for realtors who are going through these changes. And what we hopefully what we did is we calmed them down.
Yeah.
And just let them know, hey, listen, these changes aren't that major. And if you apply a couple of simple concepts, a couple of simple strategies, everything's going to be okay. And so I just want to, first of all, I want to just say thank you so much for being our guest today on Referrals Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one to share. This is one to get to the realtor that you love. I know you love a realtor. I know you do. I know you realtor, get it out to the realtor you love sooner than later and let them know that you love them. And I will tell you, I also know what is on our next Referrals podcast, and you're going to want to check that out ASAP. And make sure you're subscribed. If you enjoyed what you heard today, make sure you subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button. And if you're really motivated, you could do like Tanya, rate us, review us, let us know what you think. And here's the thing, when you do the review, when you type it up, make sure you put your real estate information, your contact information in the review, because guess what people that listen and watch the Referrals podcast like to do? They like to refer you. And the only way to do that is if they can find you. Don't be a secret agent, people. I appreciate you. I love you. We'll see you on the next episode of Referrals Podcast.